The thing about engagement parties is that everyone expects gratitude. 60 people packed into the Meridian Hotel's crystal ballroom, champagne flutes raised like tiny golden swords, waiting for the bride-to-be to gush about love and forever. Instead, Nola Varrow grabbed the microphone and served me a divorce before we even made it to the altar. I just needed a ring, not you. 7 words, 42 characters including spaces. I counted them later, the way you count the seconds between lightning and thunder to measure how close disaster struck. The silence that followed stretched like taffy, sticky and uncomfortable, while 60 guests tried to process what they'd just heard. I stood there in my rented tuxedo, watching Nola's perfectly glossed lips curve into what she probably thought was a charming smile. The microphone feedback squealed, a metallic shriek that matched the sound my pride made as it hit the marble floor. "Silas?" My best friend Ben's voice cut through the quiet from somewhere near the shrimp tower. "You okay, buddy?" Okay. That was rich. I'd just been publicly executed by a woman wearing a dress that cost more than my car payment, in front of everyone who mattered in our social circle. The engagement ring I'd spent 3 months' salary on suddenly felt like a lead weight in my pocket, where I'd been carrying the receipt. But here's the thing about being humiliated in public. It clarifies your thinking. All those months of Nola's subtle criticisms, her suggestions that I sell my condo and leave my law firm to support her career, her sudden interest in my family's financial situation after my grandmother passed away. The pieces clicked together like a jigsaw puzzle made of red flags. I walked up to the small stage where Nola stood, her blonde hair perfectly arranged, her blue eyes sparkling with what I now recognized as greed rather than joy. The microphone picked up my footsteps, amplifying each click of my dress shoes against the hardwood. "The ring," I said, extending my palm. Her smile faltered. "What?" "You just said you needed a ring, not me. So give me back my ring." The ballroom had gone so quiet I could hear the ice melting in someone's whiskey glass. Nola's face cycled through emotions like a slot machine: confusion, anger, calculation, and finally, resignation. She twisted the 2-carat diamond off her finger and dropped it into my hand. I closed my fist around it, feeling the sharp edges of the setting press into my palm. Then I turned and walked toward the exit, my footsteps echoing in the silence. "Silas, wait!" Nola's voice cracked behind me, but I didn't stop. I had nothing left to say to her, and apparently she'd already said everything she needed to say to me. The hotel lobby felt like a decompression chamber after the suffocating atmosphere of the ballroom. I loosened my bow tie and pulled out my phone to call an Uber, but before I could open the app, a familiar voice stopped me. That was quite a performance in there. Felix Roord emerged from the shadows near the concierge desk like a well-dressed vulture. My grandmother's attorney, or rather, former attorney, since the estate had closed last month. Felix specialized in probate law and expensive suits, in that order. Tonight, he wore both well. "Felix," I pocketed my phone. "Enjoying the show?" "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you." He adjusted his silk tie, a nervous habit I'd noticed during our meetings about the estate. "There might be some complications with the inheritance, probate issues. The estate closed 3 weeks ago. You filed the final papers yourself." "Yes, well." Felix's smile reminded me of a shark that had tasted something interesting in the water. "Your cousin Damon has raised some questions about your grandmother's mental capacity when she signed the will. Nothing serious, of course, but these things require investigation." Damon Vossel. My grandmother's sister's grandson, a man who'd visited her exactly twice in the last 5 years, and both times had asked to borrow money. The same Damon who'd been conspicuously absent from the funeral, but had somehow found time to contest the will. "What kind of questions?" "Oh, the usual. Whether she understood the full scope of her assets, whether she was under any undue influence." Felix's eyes glittered. The timing is unfortunate, what with your engagement ending so publicly. People might wonder about your motivations. The threat was subtle but clear. I'd just been humiliated by my fiancée, and now my grandmother's attorney was suggesting I might lose the inheritance too. The timing felt less like coincidence and more like coordination. "I'll need to review the file," I said. "Of course. Call my office Monday. We'll schedule something." Felix straightened his cufflinks. "Oh, and Silas? You might want to consider whether fighting this is worth the publicity. These contests can get quite messy." He melted back into the shadows, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the engagement ring burning a hole in my pocket. Through the ballroom doors, I could hear the party resuming, conversations, laughter, the clink of glasses. Life moving on without me. My phone buzzed with a text from Ben. "Where are you? Nola's having a meltdown. Kara's trying to spin this as pre-wedding jitters. Kara Venner, Nola's maid of honor and professional social climber. If anyone could turn my public humiliation into a misunderstanding, it would be her." I typed back, "Gone. Don't wait up." The Uber arrived as the first drops of rain began to fall. I slid into the back seat and gave the driver my address, watching the Meridian Hotel shrink in the rear window. 3 hours ago, I'd walked into that building as an engaged man with a promising future. Now I was leaving single, suspicious, and significantly poorer. But as I rolled the diamond ring between my fingers, I realized something that surprised me. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. The constant pressure to be good enough, successful enough, worthy enough for Nola Varrow had lifted. The rain picked up, drumming against the car windows like applause. My phone kept buzzing with texts and calls, but I ignored them all. Tomorrow, I would start figuring out what Nola, Felix, and Damon were really after. Tonight, I just wanted to go home and take off this ridiculous tuxedo. The driver caught my eye in the rearview mirror. "Rough night?" "You could say that." I looked out at the city lights blurring past. "But it's about to get interesting." My apartment felt different when I walked in alone. Smaller somehow, though Nola had only spent a few nights here over the past 6 months. She'd preferred her place in Pacific Heights, with its view of the bay and its mortgage that cost more than most people's annual salary. "Your place is so compact," she'd said once, the word compact doing heavy lifting to avoid saying cheap. I hung up the tuxedo and changed into jeans and a t-shirt, feeling more like myself with each piece of formal wear I discarded. The engagement ring sat on my kitchen counter, catching the light from the overhead fixture. 2 carats of clarity that had cost me $12,000 and apparently bought me nothing but a front-row seat to my own humiliation. My laptop sat on the dining table where Nola had left it 3 days ago. She'd been working on some presentation for her marketing firm, had forgotten to take it when she left for her yoga class. "I'll grab it tomorrow," she'd said. Tomorrow had turned into 3 days, and 3 days had turned into the end of our relationship. I opened the laptop and stared at the login screen. Nola wasn't particularly careful about security. She used the same password for everything, her birthday followed by her initials. 041989NV. It took me 30 seconds to access her email. The inbox told a story I wished I hadn't read. Dozens of emails between Nola and people I'd never heard of, dating back almost 2 years. But it was the thread with Damon that made my stomach clench. From Damon, vassalagmail.com, to Nola Varrow, ugmail.com, subject, timeline update, date, March 15, 2024, N. Felix says probate should close by end of May, estate value confirmed at 3.8, matter, ring timeline needs to move up. Can you handle the party scheduling? From nolavarrowugmail.com to damon.vassalagmail.com. Subject, RE, timeline update. Date, March 15, 2024. D, already booked Meridian for April 20th. Gives us 6 weeks buffer before probate closes. Kara's handling the guest list. This better work. I scrolled back through the thread, watching my relationship dissected like a business transaction. They'd planned everything: the engagement party date, the guest list, even my grandmother's funeral attendance had been calculated for maximum effect. Another email thread, this one between Nola and Kara, from nolavarrowwugmail.com to kvenerysocialstrategies.com. Subject, finder's fee. Date, January 8, 2024. K, confirming our arrangement. $200K when the estate clears, as discussed. Make sure the coffee shop meeting looks natural. He's suspicious of setups. From kvenerysocialstrategies.com to nolavarrowwugmail.com. Subject, RE, finder's fee. Date, January 8, 2024. N, already researched his routine. He hits Grind Coffee on Market Street every Tuesday at 7 a.m. I'll be there next week. This is going to work perfectly. The coffee shop. I remembered that morning perfectly. January 16th, a Tuesday. I'd been running late for a client meeting, had rushed into Grind for my usual double shot, and literally bumped into the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Nola Varrow, with her perfect smile and her spilled latte and her apologies that sounded like music. She'd let me buy her a replacement drink, and we'd talked for 20 minutes about everything and nothing. It had been a setup, all of it. I kept scrolling, finding emails about my grandmother's will, my financial situation, even my work schedule. They'd researched me like a stock they were planning to buy. Or steal. My phone rang. Ben's name appeared on the screen. Jesus, Silas, where are you? Nola's freaking out. She's telling everyone you had some kind of breakdown. I'm home, and I'm fine. I minimized the email window. Better than fine, actually. Look, I know tonight was rough, but maybe you two can work this out. She seemed pretty upset after you left. Ben. I rubbed my eyes, suddenly exhausted. She's been planning this for 2 years. The whole relationship was a con. Silence on the other end. Then, what are you talking about? I found emails. Between her and Damon, her and Kara. They targeted me because of my grandmother's estate. The engagement was just positioning for when she contested the will. Damon's contesting the will? According to Felix, yeah. Claims grandma wasn't mentally competent when she signed it. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Funny how that concern didn't surface until after she was gone. This is insane. You're telling me Nola spent 2 years pretending to love you for money? 3.8 million reasons, apparently. I opened another email thread, this one between Nola and someone named David Chen at Pacific Trust Bank. Account numbers, wire transfer instructions, asset valuations. She's got it all planned out. The wedding was scheduled for July, right after probate was supposed to close. Spousal claims to the estate, community property rights. Ben was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. My apartment overlooked a parking garage and a slice of the bay, nothing like Nola's panoramic views, but it was mine, paid for with money I'd earned myself. But I'm going to figure it out. Need backup? Maybe. Let me see what else I can find first. After Ben hung up, I reopened the laptop and kept digging. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Nola had documented everything: my work schedule, my friends, my habits, even my relationship with my grandmother. She'd known exactly what buttons to push, what vulnerabilities to exploit. There was a folder labeled Insurance that contained photos of my apartment, my car, even my office at the law firm. Another folder called Timeline had a detailed schedule of our relationship milestones, cross-referenced with probate dates and asset valuations. But it was the folder labeled Exit Strategy that made me understand just how thoroughly I'd been played. Document: Post-Marriage Asset Division. Created February 14, 2024. Community property claims, 50% of estate value, 1.9 mer. Spousal support calculation, $8,500 month for 36 months. Asset liquidation timeline, 6 to 8 months post-marriage divorce filing, month 12 through 18. Irreconcilable differences. She'd planned our divorce before she'd even accepted my proposal. Valentine's Day, the same day I'd taken her to dinner at Chez Laurent and told her I was ready to spend the rest of my life with her. While I was planning our future, she was calculating the most efficient way to extract maximum value from our marriage. I printed everything: email threads, bank records, asset valuations, timeline documents. The printer ran for 20 minutes, churning out page after page of evidence. By the time it finished, I had a stack of paper 3 inches thick that told the complete story of how Nola Varrow had systematically destroyed my life. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., grind coffee. Don't bring anyone. D. Damon." Even his threats were unoriginal. The same coffee shop where this whole mess had started. But if he wanted to meet, I was happy to oblige. I had some questions for my dear cousin. I spent the rest of the night reading through the emails, memorizing names, dates, and account numbers. By dawn, I had a clear picture of the conspiracy against me. Nola, Damon, Felix, and Kara had spent 2 years setting up an elaborate con to steal my inheritance. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd documented everything, and now I had copies of all of it. The engagement ring still sat on my kitchen counter, catching the morning light streaming through the window. I picked it up and held it to the light, watching the facets throw tiny rainbows across the wall. $12,000 for 2 carats of compressed carbon that had bought me nothing but heartbreak and betrayal. Or maybe it had bought me something else. Maybe it had bought me the truth. Grind coffee looked exactly the same as it had 4 months ago when I'd first met Nola. Same industrial fixtures, same exposed brick walls, same hipster baristas with their carefully curated facial hair. The only difference was that now I knew the beautiful woman spilling her latte had been paid to be there. Damon was already waiting at a corner table, nursing what looked like his 3rd espresso. My cousin had always been wiry, but stress had carved new lines around his eyes and mouth. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his expensive shirt was wrinkled like he'd slept in it. I ordered a double shot and joined him, setting my phone on the table between us with the voice recorder app open. Damon's eyes flicked to it nervously. "Recording our family chat?" he asked. "Just want to make sure I remember everything accurately." I leaned back in my chair. "So, cousin, how's the will contest going?" Damon's laugh was forced. "Straight to business. I always liked that about you, Silas. Cut the act. I know about the emails, the timeline, the whole setup. Question is, what do you want?" His facade cracked slightly. "Look, this doesn't have to get ugly. We can work something out." "Like what?" 50-50 split. Clean, simple. You get half, I get half. Everyone walks away happy. I sipped my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Damon shifted uncomfortably, his fingers drumming against the table. "That's generous," I said finally, "considering it's my inheritance." "Is it, though?" Damon pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. "Take a look at these documents. Might change your perspective." Inside the folder were photocopies of what appeared to be medical records, bank statements, and a handwritten note that looked like my grandmother's writing. The medical records suggested cognitive decline. The bank statements showed unusual large withdrawals, and the handwritten note was a codicil to her will, splitting the estate between Damon and me. "Interesting forgeries," I said, closing the folder. "How much did these cost you?" "They're not forgeries. The handwriting analysis will prove otherwise. Also, that medical record is dated 3 months after Grandma passed away, which is impressive even for your standards of incompetence." Damon's face flushed red. "You always thought you were smarter than everyone else." "Not everyone. Just you." I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw the will contest. You're going to disappear from my life. And maybe, just maybe, I won't turn over the evidence of your conspiracy to the district attorney." What evidence? I pulled out my phone and opened Nola's email thread. From Damon Vossel to Nola Varrow, March 15th. Felix says probate should close by end of May. Estate value confirmed at 3.8 matters. Ring timeline needs to move up. I looked up at him. Should I keep reading? The color drained from Damon's face. How did you get those? Nola left her laptop at my place. Sloppy operational security for such an elaborate con. Damon was quiet for a long moment, staring into his espresso cup like it might contain answers. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Enlighten me. I owe some people money. Serious money. The kind of people who don't accept payment plans. How much? 400,000 plus interest. I whistled low. That's a lot of bad bets. Let me guess. Sports? Poker? Crypto? All of the above. Damon's voice was barely above a whisper. They gave me 6 months to pay up. That was 5 months ago. So you decided to steal my inheritance. I decided to claim what should have been mine anyway. Your grandmother always favored you. I was family too. You visited her twice in 5 years, both times to ask for money. That doesn't mean I didn't care about her. I stood up, pocketing my phone. Here's some free advice, cousin. Find another way to pay your debts. Because if you don't withdraw that contest by end of business today, I'm taking these emails to the police. Wait. Damon grabbed my arm. There's something else you need to know about Felix. I sat back down. I'm listening. He's not just my attorney. He's representing a congressional candidate who's under investigation for campaign finance violations. Nola's family contributed over $300,000 through shell companies. If that money gets traced back to them, they're looking at federal charges. What does that have to do with me? The inheritance was supposed to be their insurance policy, clean money to replace what they'd already spent on the campaign. Felix was getting a percentage for setting up the legal framework. The pieces clicked together. So this wasn't just about stealing from me. It was about covering up campaign finance fraud. Exactly. And if you expose this, you're not just taking on me and Nola. You're taking on some very powerful people who have a lot to lose. I absorbed this information, understanding now why Felix had approached me at the engagement party. He hadn't been making a casual threat. He'd been trying to gauge how much I knew and how much trouble I might cause. Who's the candidate? Congressman Bradley Morrison. He's running for Senate. Morrison. I knew the name. A moderate Democrat who'd been gaining traction in the polls, positioning himself as a reformer who would clean up Washington. The irony was almost funny. How deep is Nola's family in this? Her father runs 3 different PACs. Her mother owns the shell companies. They've been funneling money to Morrison for 2 years, way over the legal limits. Damon pulled out another folder. Felix gave me copies of everything as insurance, bank records, wire transfers, contribution reports. I flipped through the documents, recognizing some of the account numbers from Nola's emails. The web of financial transactions was complex, but the pattern was clear: systematic campaign finance violations totaling over $1 million. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm screwed either way. If I don't pay my debts, I'm going to disappear. If I withdraw the will contest, I can't pay my debts. But if you take down Felix and the Varrows, maybe I can cut a deal with the feds. Cooperation in exchange for protection. I studied my cousin's face, looking for tells. Damon had always been a decent liar, but desperation made people sloppy. His story felt true, or at least mostly true. I want copies of everything Felix gave you. Done. And you withdraw the will contest today. Agreed. And you stay away from me, my friends, and anyone else in my life. Not a problem. I finished my coffee and stood up again. One more thing, Damon. If you're lying to me about any of this, if this is some kind of elaborate double cross, I will make sure you regret it. I'm not lying. I'm desperate, but I'm not stupid. As I walked out of Grind Coffee, I felt the weight of what I'd just learned. What had started as a simple case of inheritance fraud had expanded into a conspiracy involving campaign finance violations, federal investigations, and a congressional candidate who might be the next senator from California. Nola hadn't just been after my money. She'd been trying to save her entire family from prison. My phone buzzed with a text from Ben. "Nola's been calling everyone, trying to get your number. Says she needs to explain. Want me to give it to her?" I typed back, "No, but thanks for the heads up." The game was getting more complex, but the rules were becoming clearer. Nola, Felix, and the Varrows had made their move at the engagement party, expecting me to fold quietly and walk away. Instead, I was about to raise the stakes considerably. Time to see how well they played under pressure. The FBI field office in downtown San Francisco looked like every government building ever constructed: concrete, glass, and the architectural equivalent of a firm handshake. I sat in the waiting area, holding a briefcase full of evidence and wondering if I was making the biggest mistake of my life. Agent Sarah Martinez appeared after 20 minutes, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She led me to a small conference room that smelled like coffee and bureaucracy. "Mr. Oren, thank you for coming in. I understand you have information about campaign finance violations?" I opened the briefcase and spread the documents across the table. "My ex-fiancée's family has been funneling illegal contributions to Congressman Morrison's Senate campaign. I have bank records, wire transfers, and email correspondence documenting the violations." Agent Martinez picked up one of the bank statements, scanning the numbers. "How did you obtain these documents?" "Some were left on a laptop at my apartment. Others were provided by a cooperating witness." "Your cousin, Damon Vossel. Yes, he contacted us yesterday." She set down the bank statement. "He claims he was coerced into participating in a scheme to contest your grandmother's will as part of this conspiracy." "That's partially true. Damon was definitely involved, but coercion is a generous interpretation. He owes money to some dangerous people and saw my inheritance as a solution." "Tell me about Felix Ruard." I pulled out the email threads between Felix and Nola. "He's the attorney who represented both my grandmother's estate and Damon's will contest. Classic conflict of interest, but it gets worse. He was feeding information about the estate to Nola and Damon, helping them time their con." Agent Martinez read through the emails, occasionally making notes. "And you believe Mr. Ruard is also involved in the campaign finance violations?" "According to Damon, Felix was setting up the legal framework for laundering the illegal contributions through my inheritance. Clean money to replace what the Varrows had already spent on Morrison's campaign." "That's a serious allegation." "I have serious evidence." She spent the next hour going through every document, asking detailed questions about dates, amounts, and relationships between the various players. I answered everything as thoroughly as I could, watching her expression grow more interested as the scope of the conspiracy became clear. "Mr. Oren, I need to ask you something directly. What do you want out of this?" The question caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" "You've been the victim of fraud, conspiracy, and emotional manipulation. You have every right to be angry. But bringing this to federal law enforcement is a big step. It's going to get messy, public, and expensive. So I'm asking, what's your endgame here?" I thought about Nola standing on that stage, microphone in hand, destroying me in front of 60 people. I thought about Damon's forged documents and Felix's veiled threats. I thought about my grandmother, who'd worked 2 jobs her entire life to build the nest egg they were trying to steal. "Justice," I said finally, "and maybe a little revenge." Agent Martinez smiled for the first time since I'd met her. "I can work with that. But I need you to understand what you're signing up for. If we move forward with this investigation, you're going to be a key witness in a federal case. Your personal life is going to be scrutinized. The defense attorneys are going to try to destroy your credibility. They already destroyed my reputation at the engagement party. How much worse can it get?" "You'd be surprised. She gathered up the documents and put them in a folder marked confidential. I'm going to need you to sign some paperwork, and then we're going to want a formal statement. This could take several hours. I've got time. The formal statement took 3 hours and covered every detail of my relationship with Nola, from our first meeting at Grind Coffee to the engagement party disaster. Agent Martinez asked about everything: dates, conversations, financial discussions, even intimate details about our relationship that made me uncomfortable but were apparently relevant to establishing the conspiracy timeline. When we finished, she walked me to the elevator. Mr. Oren, I want you to be very careful over the next few weeks. The people you're accusing have a lot to lose. They might try to intimidate you or discredit you. Any specific threats I should watch for? The usual: anonymous calls, suspicious activity around your home or workplace, attempts to hack your email or social media accounts. If anything unusual happens, call me immediately. She handed me her business card. One more thing. Don't discuss this investigation with anyone except your attorney. That includes your friend Ben, your family, anyone. The fewer people who know, the better. I rode the elevator down to the lobby, feeling the weight of what I'd just set in motion. By cooperating with the FBI, I'd escalated a personal betrayal into a federal case that could send multiple people to prison. There was no going back now. My phone rang as I walked out of the building. Nola's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Hello, Nola. Silas, thank God. We need to talk. I think you said everything you needed to say at the engagement party. That was a mistake. I was drunk. I was nervous. I said things I didn't mean. You seemed pretty clear to me. You needed a ring, not me. Direct quote. Please, can we meet somewhere? I can explain everything. There's nothing to explain. I know about the emails, the timeline, the whole con. I know about Kara's finder's fee and Damon's will contest. I even know about your family's campaign contributions. The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. Then, you don't understand the whole situation. Enlighten me. Not over the phone. Meet me at the Meridian, same ballroom where the party was. 1 hour. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, you're going to regret it. The line went silent. I stared at my phone, wondering if that had been a threat or a warning. With Nola, it was often hard to tell the difference. I called Ben from my car. Change of plans. I might need that backup after all. What's going on? Nola wants to meet. Same place as the engagement party. Could be a trap. Could be an apology. Ben, she spent 2 years conning me out of my inheritance to cover up federal crimes. I don't think she's in an apologetic mood. Fair point. What do you need me to do? Just be nearby. If I don't call you in 2 hours, assume something went wrong. Should I bring anything? Your phone and a healthy skepticism about everything Nola says. As I drove toward the Meridian Hotel, I wondered what Nola's endgame was. She had to know that I'd found the emails, that I understood the scope of the conspiracy. Maybe she was hoping to negotiate, to find some way to minimize the damage. Or maybe she was planning something more desperate. Either way, I was about to find out. The ballroom where she'd humiliated me 3 days ago was about to become the scene of our final confrontation. This time, I was going to be ready for her. The Meridian Hotel's crystal ballroom looked different in the afternoon light. Empty tables, chairs stacked against the walls, and the ghost of Saturday night's humiliation hanging in the air like stale champagne. Nola stood at the far end, silhouetted against the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the bay. She'd traded her engagement party dress for a black suit that made her look like she was attending a funeral. Maybe she was, the funeral of whatever relationship we'd pretended to have. You came, she said as I approached. You threatened me. I was curious. I didn't threaten you, I warned you. I stopped about 10 feet away, close enough to talk but far enough to run if necessary. What's the difference? Nola turned to face me fully, and I was surprised to see that she looked genuinely distressed. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, and her usually immaculate hair was slightly disheveled. The difference is that I'm trying to save your life. From what? From the people who are going to blame you for destroying theirs. I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder app, setting it on the nearest table. Start talking. Damon told you about the campaign contributions, didn't he? About my family's involvement with Morrison's Senate race? Among other things. What he didn't tell you is that we're not the only ones involved. Morrison's campaign has taken illegal money from a dozen different sources. Defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, foreign nationals funneling cash through American shell companies. And you know this how? Because Felix has been coordinating all of it. He's not just a probate attorney, Silas. He's a money launderer, has been for years. I absorbed this information, understanding that the conspiracy was even larger than I'd realized. So my inheritance was just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. Exactly. And when the FBI starts pulling that puzzle apart, a lot of very powerful people are going to be looking for someone to blame. Let me guess, they're going to blame me. You're the whistleblower. You're the one who brought them down. Some of these people have connections that go way beyond politics. What kind of connections? Nola walked to one of the windows, staring out at the bay. The kind that make people disappear. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to warn you, there's a difference. I joined her at the window, maintaining my distance, but close enough to see her reflection in the glass. Why would you warn me? According to your emails, I'm just a mark, a means to an end. Those emails... She sighed, her breath fogging the window slightly. They don't tell the whole story. Then tell me the whole story. Nola was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. It started as a con. I won't lie about that. Kara identified you as a target. I agreed to the setup, and we planned the whole thing. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being just business. She turned to face me. I know you don't believe me, and I don't blame you. But I did develop real feelings for you. Real enough to plan our divorce before accepting my proposal? That was insurance, in case things went wrong. Things did go wrong. You humiliated me in front of 60 people. I panicked. Tears started forming in her eyes, though with Nola, tears were just another tool of manipulation. When I saw Felix at the party, when he told me the FBI was already asking questions about Morrison's campaign, I realized the whole plan was falling apart. I thought if I ended things publicly, dramatically, it would make you look like a victim instead of a co-conspirator. How thoughtful. I was trying to protect you. By destroying me? By giving you plausible deniability. If anyone asked, you were just an innocent guy who got conned by a manipulative woman, which honestly isn't far from the truth. I studied her face, looking for tells. Nola was an accomplished liar, but stress made everyone sloppy. Her story felt partially true, which made it more dangerous than an obvious lie. What do you want from me, Nola? I want you to disappear for a while. Take a vacation, visit family out of state, get out of the city until this blows over. And if I don't? Then you're going to become a target for some very dangerous people who have a lot more to lose than I do. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it quickly. A message from Agent Martinez. Need to meet ASAP. New developments. I have to go, I said, pocketing the phone. Silas, please. I know you hate me, and you have every right to, but don't let that hatred get you hurt. Is that what you think this is about? Hatred? Isn't it? I picked up my phone from the table, stopping the recording. No, Nola. It's about justice. It's about making sure that people who steal and lie and manipulate face consequences for their actions. Even if those consequences include your own destruction? Even then. I walked toward the exit, but Nola's voice stopped me at the door. The ring, she said. What about it? Do you still have it? I reached into my pocket, feeling the diamond's sharp edges against my fingers. Yeah. Keep it. As evidence or a reminder or whatever you want, but keep it. Why? Because it's the only real thing that came out of this whole mess. I may have targeted you for your money, but that ring, you bought that with love. Don't let them take that away from you. I left without responding, but her words followed me out of the ballroom and into the elevator. The ring in my pocket felt heavier somehow, weighted with meaning I wasn't ready to examine. As I walked through the hotel lobby, I passed the same spot where Felix had threatened me 3 days ago. The concierge desk, the shadows, the smell of expensive cologne and expensive lies. Everything looked the same, but I felt different. Stronger, maybe, or just more determined. My phone rang. Agent Martinez. Mr. Oren, we need to meet immediately. There have been some developments in the case. Good developments or bad developments? Both. How soon can you get to the field office? I checked my watch. 20 minutes. See you then. And Mr. Oren, watch your back. We have reason to believe that some of the subjects of our investigation are aware of your cooperation. Leaving me alone in the hotel lobby with a recording of Nola's confession and a growing sense that the game was about to get much more dangerous. But I'd come too far to back down now. Whatever Agent Martinez had discovered, whatever new threats were emerging, I was committed to seeing this through to the end. The ring in my pocket reminded me